Welcome to Marriage and Family Therapy, Chapter 11, the Milan Systemic Model, Family Therapy Overview by Goldenberg and Goldenberg. As has been said in this course before, Milan is not a practice, a strategic model that is being used widespread. Theories by definition are works in progress. Start again. Theories by definition are works in progress. They're more or less organized sets of constructs. They're sent forth to explain existing data and predict subsequent phenomena. However, they're tentative, open to revision, and understood in the context from whence they were derived. This is the case with Milan. It came as an adjunct to structural strategic. It has somewhat outlived itself and is not as applicable as before. However, it is on the large marriage and family exam, and it's included here. It came based initially on first order cybernetic ideas from the Palo Alto Mental Research Institute. If you have a multiple choice test on the large MFT exam, go with Palo Alto MRI, Mental Research Institute. Most of these founding theories evolved from there. Milan had an emphasis on family rules and homeostasis, seeking interactive patterns. In its 30-year period, its tenure, it has undergone continuous change from day one forward. There's some post-Milan thought as a result of some of the changes. One particular perspective is that the clients take truth away from the therapist. It's very narrative, it's very postmodernist. My truth is my truth. My reality is subjective to me. And goal setting is collaborative and participatory between the therapist and the family members. And they make changes to find something that fits them. The therapist is very much non-hierarchical, a collaborator, hopefully a knowledgeable one, but not the final expert on the family or the individual. Milan Systemic Family Therapy, led by Mara Salvini Pelosi, interactional sequences, and systemic family therapy became sort of the new name for Milan therapy. It became the Milan Systemic Family Therapy because they're looking to see how families develop homeostasis and how they maintain it either positively or negatively. The four founding members, Palazzoli, Boscolo, Chechen, and Prada, split. So they came together in the 60s. By the early 70s, they had split and were finding different ways. They looked at interventions like positive connotation and rituals to try to change non-working family interactive sequences. Paradoxes, counter-paradoxes, rituals, and positive connotations on page 269 are the rules of the game, particularly in psychotic families. As Haley said, as Bowen and Mnuchin found in dealing with schizophrenic families, that there are games and rituals and unspoken, nonverbal, contextual clues as to how a family would regulate themselves and control their members according to rules and roles that have been assigned. So looking at counter-paradoxes, which were essentially therapeutic double-bind. The family was warned against premature change. You're not quite ready to do the things that you need to do. And so hopefully to make families want to prove the therapist wrong. It still has a sense of manipulation toward the client. Positive connotation, where positive motives were ascribed to family behaviors, to all family transactions, reframed to appear that they're carried out in the name of family cohesion, functioning purposely to maintain homeostasis. They also came into long, brief therapy, so they would meet once per month, but maybe do that for 10 to 12 sessions over a year period of time. Long, brief therapy. They would write a paradoxical letter. Sometimes the therapist would write that to each family member, and with request that The family attempt to carry out rituals, meeting once a month to discuss family conflicts, once a month having a dating session, once a month having a family outing, positive connotations, complimenting each family member, saying that they knew that they had the best interest of the family at heart. The family meetings, the structured family sessions were structured in such a way that everyone was notified, everyone knew they would come on this one day. If they missed that one session, they would miss it until the following month. It was extremely rigid and structured in an effort to help dysfunctional families who were not able to meet normal structured routines to understand that that was necessary. On page 272 in the box 11.1 is a paradoxical letter to a family from the therapist. In that, there's a cryptic statement that's designed to unite the family to guess who it was. A relabeling that sharing hurt is equated to love. Restraining, saying that it might be risky to discuss it too soon. A positive connotation for distraction to be understood as a protective measure for the family. Prescribing the fighting. The most distracting member of the family is relabeled as the one who's most responsible and loyal to the family as a whole. Another cryptic statement dealing with a silent crisis, so that the family might want to discuss what the silent crisis was. Relabeling that a chaotic family does not have predictability or certainty, and that confusion was relabeled as a preparation for growth. And a paradoxical question, with the next session being scheduled for next week. We expect to have a fight about the attendance of one of the family members on Wednesday night, if earlier. So setting the stage for the family to at least hold a discussion. Looking to see if the systems were too rigid, too chaotic, too narrow, or too broad in their structure. Family rituals, page 274, are things that any family would engage in: birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, celebrations, graduations, funerals, and giving a mode of behavior for those things to try to draw the family together. Usually a paradoxical prescription, describing in detail what act will be done, like in a funeral, who would be doing the grieving, what sequence, what that would mean, relabeling it, reframing it. So it evolved into a model of hypothesizing neutrality and circular questioning as a way to deal with families. And those were sort of hallmark interventions that are still used now if there's any carryover from the one method. Hypothesizing was understood to be a continual interactive process of speculating and making tentative assumptions about the family situation to provide a guide for conducting a systemic interview. So if it were used in treatment now, a hypothesis as a tentative, if you feel you know what the client's presenting problem is and you feel the client is a little hesitant, the therapist could say, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that I'm thinking might be going on here is, and then a statement of what the therapist thinks that they're seeing what's being presented. And that's the way I think hypothesis is used, hypothesizing is used. It allows the therapist to present a view of the family behavior that's different, not true, not false, just this is from a different lens, a different perspective. The goal of therapeutic hypotheses is change, not necessarily truth. Neutrality, different from non-involvement, because the therapist is involved, but accepts without challenge each member's unique perception of the problem. Not necessarily accepting the problem, but accepting the subjective truth brought forth by each family member. Bohemian thought would call that, Carl Rogers would call that unconditional positive regard. Same kind of idea. Circular question. Sometimes that is asking each member in the family the same question privately and comparing the answers. Or asking each member of the family to address a different perspective of the same problem to underscore the notion of feedback loops so that everyone in the family would be able to hear everyone else's response. Several interventions that we have in this practice, like thought bubbles, the solution circles, where everyone hears the sentence stems, every family member hears every other family member's response to the same problem. Questioning family belief systems with the paradox, counter-paradox phenomenon. Dysfunctional families with a symptomatic member, hopefully seeking change, would see themselves behaving paradoxically, and the family would move to kind of catch up. If you look at page 280, there is an example of circular questions. Differences in relationship, differences in degree between each family member, differences in time, understanding the future, having an observer perspective, having some type of normative comparison for healthy functioning, introducing a hypothesis, looking at linear questions, yes and no, very closed questions in order to get different responses and different communication information from each family member. And the beliefs are not the same as the behavior. The behavior shows that the family is stuck in a certain type of interactive responses. The beliefs are privately held and then collectively held, privately by the members, collectively by the family as a group. Looking on page 282, this process for conducting Milan therapy was on the marriage and family exam that I took. And I was asked, what was the first thing that is done? The first thing is done is to construct a working hypothesis of what is going on with this family. Then to develop a therapeutic stance of neutrality. Begin to use circular questioning for assessment and therapy. Working as a team to monitor the progress. Identifying the labels the family uses. Openings or themes to be explored. Positive connotations for problematic behaviors, and an end of session interview. The other thing that I saw on the large marriage and family test is the invariant prescription. It's based on a 6-stage model of psychotic family games. Stage 1, in a marriage that's ending, the child tries to take sides. Stage 2, the child is drawn into the family game and chooses one parent over the other, possibly siding with the losing parent. Stage 3, the child develops disturbed behaviors or symptomology to bring the family into treatment. Stage 4, the winner parent engages in disapproving of the child's behavior. Stage 5, the family stabilizes around the symptomatic behavior. With 6, all families going into a psychotic family game, trying to turn it around. By the time you get to that stage with these families, they typically have defects intervention, or they've been referred to DJJ by the community or the school system, or they're being put out of school. So the invariant prescription is a fixed sequence of directives that family must follow to disrupt and interrupt that family game. Post-Milan interventions, and there's a picture on page 284 of Pascalo, fine-tuning their questioning techniques, trying to advance a constructivist approach, trying to become more mainline, more mainstreamed. Going into Carl Tom with reflexive questioning, which is sort of Milan revisited. These are future-oriented questions. Observer perspective questions, look from the outside looking in. Unexpected counterchange questions, opening up new possibilities, new solutions. Embedding, tentatively embedding suggestions. What would happen if you told your wife that you were hurt instead of angry, or instead of closing down? Normative comparison questions. Have you ever had any friends? Trying to normalize the issue a little bit. Distinction clarifying questions, separating the components of the behavior pattern. Questions to introduce the hypothesis, and process interrupting questions. So, really there's not just a great deal to be taken from this other than to understand that the Milan system added to the field of research during its time. We will pick up next week with Chapter 12, Behavioral Cognitive.